episode of At Witt's End. I'm Ken. That's Carson. He's 6,000 miles away. I guess that's kind of getting redundant with every episode, but it is
it's all right.
it is morning on the west coast of the United States and evening in Austria. Or what time is it? Let's see, 9-hour difference.
7:23
All right, so
at
it's
the
early
time of this
evening.
recording. Yep.
Yeah,
It's in there. Football on the East Coast just started in NFL, so
yeah.
those early games.
Yeah,
But it's
yesterday was
prime
college
time.
game day.
Yeah, prime time for me. Morning time for you. That's so funny.
Yeah, I used to complain about being in Hawaii and watching football, and it was like, now it's
Breakfast.
yeah, you've
Now
got the
it's
whole issue. It's also
past
been
dinner.
about a year since Carson arrived in Austria, so congratulations on your anniversary.
Yeah, 1 year on the European continent.
Yeah,
Made it this far.
yeah, you've done a lot in 12 months. How many countries?
It's been 7 or 8
Seven.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
7 or 8. So hopefully
So
getting one to
we'll
the
talk
list
about one
soon.
of our
But
favorite little towns today as a tourist destination for Americans. It's not one of the most popular. Most people in the States have never heard of it. We've recommended it.
but
We've
it
had some friends go.
yeah,
Very
very
cool.
well could be. Yeah.
Yeah. But first, let's start off. You just went to an event. Where did
Yeah.
you go?
Yep. I guess it was an anniversary of being in Europe celebration that I forgot it was a year since I've been, but I went to my first Linzer Athletic Sport Club football match, soccer match of the Americans. Um, LASK, as they are known, LASK. They're the local club here in Linz.
Wait, it's
In
called
the
LASK?
Yeah, LASK is
Oh,
how
I
they
thought you were
go.
saying
They go by.
last.
No,
I
no,
thought that.
LASK. There's a K at
Yeah.
the end.
Okay.
Yeah, a little hard to say. I will
Yeah.
say that. So it's not the easiest term, but
And they're
they're
part
the
of the
local
Austrian Bundesliga.
Bundes. Yeah, they're
League.
premier in the Austrian Bundesliga top league. They're currently second in the table, if I remember right. Although, sadly, I attended their first loss of the season, so that was very disappointing. They kind of got destroyed. They played Tirol, and I think it ended up 4-1.
Which is shocking because
So
from what I know, Tirol is not that good a team.
yeah, I mean, for a team they hadn't lost yet on the season, they had 3 draws, but they were in the second in the table, fighting against Salzburg, who's in the Champions League, um, at the top of the Bundesliga table,
Yeah, and
and
you should
so
say
that was a
Salzburg's also probably one of the best funded teams. I mean, they're owned by
Red
Red Bull,
Bull
right? Yeah,
team.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
they have big money. They're definitely the best funded in the Austrian. That's why they're in the Champions League. They get you players. They do recruit like young talent. They've had a lot of players come through that are now at top flight teams, namely Erling Haaland, who is
No idea who he is.
scorched. Is going scorched earth in the Premier League. He's got
For who?
12 goals. Manchester City.
Oh
So
wow.
his dad used to play for Manchester City, but Holland actually started his kind of debut was with Salzburg, and then he moved on to Dortmund in the German Bundesliga, and that's where he really rose to fame. But now he's tearing it up in the Premier League with Manchester City, and
So he's a Brit,
has
born and
no,
raised.
no, he's Norwegian.
Oh, and his dad played.
He looks like a Viking, and like he's got long flowing blonde hair, and he's huge. He's a mammoth. Like he's
Oh man,
super tall.
gotta find a picture of this
Um,
guy.
yeah, dude's a monster. He actually his last goal he basically karate kicked the ball like kind of like kung fu
Scissor kick.
goal. It was
Oh,
it was just like he was kicking towards the goal, but like kicked forward. It's hard to describe. There's a crazy picture of it too. But there was a
I'll have
lot
to
of
post it.
because he was the biggest sign that happened in the Premier League this year, coming from Dortmund. A lot of hype around him.
So
And
he played for
like
Salzburg. He didn't play for Linz.
no, he played for Salzburg. Yeah,
Okay.
he's probably the biggest player to come out of Salzburg in recent years. Then he played for Dortmund in the German Bundesliga for a couple years. had a lot of back and forth with Bayern Munich. And then he's moved on to Manchester City, where his dad played
Yeah.
at prior to him. But
I kind
and
of
then
think though
Salzburg.
that the
Good.
smaller, like in Austria and Switzerland and even Germany, the the smaller clubs would be kind of more a better experience, a lot of fun. I mean, the only match I've really been to pro was in Switzerland. I don't even remember where it was. I'm assuming Zurich, and it looked like the stadium in Linz, small but a boisterous crowd. And then obviously we have family that are fans of Rapid Wien, Vienna's team, and they have a nice stadium, and the crowd gets into it. So it sounded like you had a good time.
Yeah, yeah. I think especially with Linz, and to finish up on the Salzburg thing, the other thing recently a connection to us Americans. Brendan Aronson, who is a stud on the American national team, was playing at Salzburg and got transferred to the Premier League for Leeds United, who's the default American team in the Premier League now. But he is an American,
Uh,
was playing for Salzburg, and then is now in the Premier League.
no
He's
Americans on
pretty
the
good.
Linzer team or Vienna.
No Americans I checked on the Linzer
Ah,
team, so
dang.
mostly Austrians on the Linzer team. But yeah, so getting back to Linz, so like you're saying, it's a small arena. I think the stands are maybe 10 rows high, but I think that like you're talking about, it gets to when you get to an arena that small, I think it seats like 5,000-6,000 people. You get the diehards and the dedicated, so like the support is really strong, even from the smaller groups. And I'll include some videos and pictures I took on the YouTube video of this, but the like the what you call the hooligans section, or the I don't know how like
That's
the
probably the
German
only
term
thing
is.
Americans know about European soccer, hooligans, and that's pretty much the British, from what I
Yeah, yeah,
understand.
but that version, the like hardcore support section, I mean, constant throughout the match. And you gotta remember, we were so it ended up 4-1, so they got killed. But constant flag waving, constant singing, constant drum, like it did not stop.
And beer,
So it's cool to
lots
see
of
that.
beer.
Yeah,
How was the
lots of beer
food?
carrying around. I didn't try
Sausages?
any of the food, but it looked like sausages and
Yeah.
sausage and
Oh,
a
dude, that would have been
semmel,
the best part
bread
for me.
rolls. Pretty simple. They
A
get the
couple of
beer
beers.
carrying trays.
Oh yeah,
Um,
tell the story about the kids.
yeah, so it's kind of funny. The sitting a couple rows up, and you can like stand at the edge of the railing, right at the field edge. And there was these kids in front of me, probably 10, 11, 12 years old, and they were all standing on the edge the entire game. They were standing there, and next to him is this old guy sitting on the bleachers, kind of by himself. Um, and they were sitting there, and the old guy had a at the beginning of the game, he had a the beer tray carrying kind of tray that in Europe is used to carry like 6 beers at a time or something. And
A
he had
pint
one of those sitting,
each.
yeah, pint each.
Mhm.
And he had one of those plastic cups, and sitting next to him with beers. I think he had like 4 or 5 of them sitting in that tray, and I was like, man, one dude, 5 beers, he's smoking cigarettes. Dude is going hard for the match. Then I come to realize I noticed throughout the like first half, the kids that are sitting there, little kids, are turning around and kind of sneaking sips of beer, and I'm pretty sure he just bought the beer for the little kids, and it's extra funny. And like I think it's just funny. It's not super abnormal here.
No.
Um, it's not legal, I'm pretty sure, but not abnormal. But it's extra funny because just down the row in the corner of the stadium, I'm very close to the corner, is like a bunch of stadium like security staff and police, the police, and they just could care less. They didn't care at all. They didn't check once, but I'm pretty sure the kids, like 3 or 4 of them, drank through like 4 or 5 beers. Like
Yeah.
that was not the old man's beer; it was the kid's
I
beer.
find that I love that, and I don't think most Americans, you know, alcohol is taboo in the states. 21, you're in high school, you're sneaking beers and booze, whatever. But in Europe, I mean, it was part of the family meal, always was. Beer was not mystified. It was something I remember as a kid going out and working with one of my uncles at his little garden house, and he said, "We'll have beers afterwards." So I got all excited, and then we get done, and he shows me the beer. They were sitting out on the porch in the sun, not the ice
Ew.
cold that we love here. So Yeah, a
Yeah, and
little
it's funny
disappointed.
because you see those differences too. Like you think of college in the U.S., like underage drinking at college, it's such a thing, and here there's like it's not underage or of legal age when you're in college to drink in Austria. There's literally a beer garden in the middle of campus. There's a cocktail bar floating on the water. There's a um, a cellar bar in the Mensa hall, which is the cafeteria at the bottom. In the cellar is a pub. It's just a full pub.
Yeah, if you get
They
a
have like
plate of
a
spaghetti or schnitzel, you get a beer with it or a glass
yeah,
of
just go
wine.
get a beer. They sell beer in the cafeteria. It's
Could you
just like
imagine doing that
regular.
on a U.S. campus somewhere?
I was
The
thinking
lines.
yeah, when I first saw the beer garden here on the campus in the center campus, I was like, could you imagine that at Virginia Tech on the drill field, just dead center in the
Be
grass?
packed.
There's an outdoor bar, like with like tables. I mean, it'd be killer.
I remember
But
when you
you know,
were
it's
going to JKU, the first I looked on there and they were having some just event out on the student center there, that main building. I can't remember what it's called. And they showed
yeah,
that guy with it was like a beer cart. No, it was a VW van with taps on the side. And he's
yeah.
pouring
It's
beers for everybody. I go, oh, that looks like a great campus.
yeah. They like the like master's and PhD organization for the technical college here, the like sciences college, science and engineering college. They have like beer refrigerators and like hardcore, like really nice beer tap like
Yeah,
kegrators with like the full setups that you would find in like a restaurant, but they just use it for their events and they have like their own
right.
trailer for it all, and they have like two like refrigerators to hold like bottles, and they have
Yeah.
their kegrators, and it's like
I mean,
it's
just
like
just think about the revenue stream you could get at a college football game. Of course, it would probably get out of hand.
well,
So I can
I
understand
actually
that.
I disagree with that. I think selling it like normalizing it would
Well,
make it
yeah,
better.
but don't you think
Like
initially the first couple of games where they're selling beer, the student section would get out?
yeah,
Maybe if
the
they limit it.
first,
Yeah,
but I think like there's a really good point. A lot of students like pre a football game at Virginia Tech get really drunk because you can't drink at the
yeah,
stadium, so
they're
they overly
shotgunning
drunk
beers on the way to the
before.
game. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah. But imagine like you can just it's just constant throughout. You don't have to so like that like wanting to put in as much as you can before you have to stop drinking.
Yeah,
Like
unless they cut it
it
off
that
in the
goes
third
away.
quarter. They-
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so,
Then that's a little bit different. But
but getting
like
back to
that goes away.
the match, I found that interesting, but also charming, and I thought that was a great little story. Because could you imagine that happening here? And I'll bring up, you probably haven't heard about, you hear about it was a Utah football game, and I guess there were some students topless, and
Oh
so like
no.
parents are
Yeah.
freaking out. Yeah, in Utah of all
Oh
places.
yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Utah.
wow, could you imagine if like there were little kids drinking beer in front of those same parents that complained about the topless
The
co-eds?
amount of people posting on the next door neighbors app would be
Oh, go
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
But yeah,
But
so the last match was fun. It was cold and rainy, so it was the like coldest day of recent time so far. So it's really transitioning to the fall winter weather. Um, but yeah, it was cool to be in like this hometown, like small town kind of team. And I know they're one of the top teams in Austria, but it definitely gives that smaller vibe that I hadn't previously gotten because I've been to matches at Tottenham and Bayern, so I
yeah,
gotten those massive teams.
talking about
Uh,
that. So what did you pay for a ticket for the Linzer Zebras or
so
whatever
Linzer,
they?
I paid €20. That
Okay,
was the
so
most
the
expensive
Premier League
ticket.
games, I know you got some deals. You got a great deal, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Tottenham, I got a great freaking deal. I had a club ticket and I paid £50.
Okay, so that's
So
kind
I
of a
think it was
bad
probably like
example, but a normal
yeah,
ticket for a
yeah.
Premier Manchester versus
Well, so they're not actually that expensive compared to U.S. sports. So I think they're way cheaper and better value than a U.S. sport ticket.
huh.
Um,
Yeah,
so
but
like
weren't you
the
trying to
club
go to a match in Germany that was like a couple €100, a big
and
match?
an American NFL match.
Oh, that's right. I
the
take
the
never mind.
American football game in Munich this year, I was looking at tickets. The cheapest were €800, and
That's
I was just
crazy.
like, "Holy crap, no!"
Well, I
But
shouldn't say it's crazy because it's the same here. If I were to go to the a Rams game down in LA for crappy,
for a
shitty
nose,
seats,
these were
yeah,
nosebleed seats.
yeah, I think in LA it'd be the same thing. So, you know,
Yeah, I was just yeah, but I found like European football matches, because most of the teams are governed by the people or are highly influenced by the people, i.e., their fans, that prices reflect that.
Yeah.
So especially in like the German Bundesliga is a very good example. They are legally obliged to be owned by the people, and so the prices that pay for a ticket in German Bundesliga matches are very reasonable for what you're getting.
Yeah.
At Tottenham, they have this brand new stadium which you can only equate in the world to NFL football stadiums. Beautiful, because it was built to
Yeah, I was
host
gonna say it was
NFL
built.
football
Yeah.
stadiums or football games, and it was an amazing experience. And the ticket I had their club section, which included drinks and a meal in like the bathroom, so it was really nice. And I got a sweet deal, which I think it was a single ticket on it. I only paid €50 for padded seat. So
So that was
and
below face value, you think?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And if you want to see, so probably my favorite TikTok account I discovered through TikTok is called the Padded Seat, and it's this guy that goes to sporting events and goes to padded seats, because in England it's famous, or it's known that you have an elevated experience when your seat is padded instead of just like the plastic ones, right? So you get
Well,
like a meal
wait,
and entry
you look
early.
at the teams though. That's what I've always noticed about the teams. They all sit in these like bus
Oh, the
station
racing
covered,
chairs.
yeah,
Yeah,
covered.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
thinking, Green Bay in a snowstorm kind of thing.
Those
You know,
bleachers. Yeah. But the padded seat on TikTok. Shout out to his account. I love it. It's awesome. He started off doing English football teams. So he'd go to all the different stadiums and show the padded seat experience. So that
okay,
means like food before the game, pre-match
yeah.
entertainment, and stuff
Do
like
they do?
that. And he's
Wait, do they do
expanded.
tailgating? No, because
No,
everybody
no.
walks from
But
the
you can
pubs.
go. Yeah, yeah. You can go like 2 hours ahead of time and get a meal and stuff before the game. Like
Yeah,
at
but nobody
in these
drives to a
experiences.
match because they're all in the city. You go to the local pub and then walk.
Depends on where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
yeah,
like in
yeah.
Linz, it was you got on the bus, right?
Got on the train, yeah, and
Oh,
walked
train.
5 minutes from the train stop along this like one little avenue through a neighborhood. So,
And I know the stadium
um,
there's kind of outside of town, right? You said.
yeah, they're building a new one closer to town, so a much nicer, brand new stadium.
So are there pubs nearby that you
No,
could go? No.
no,
Okay.
no.
So you're
Yeah,
drinking in the stadium.
yeah, it was definitely a smaller experience, and yeah, I mean, the guys there were buying 6 beers per person, so they had
Well,
the
Grandpa
experience
was
in the
buying six
stadium.
beers for everybody.
Yeah, for all the kids. So,
I guess that's a
um,
easy way for childcare. Grandpa, you're
yeah.
watching the kids. Okay.
So, yeah, yeah, easy way for him, and the kids are enjoying that too. So, but speaking of beer, this is a good transition point, I think. To Austrians love their beer, known as the second in the world in terms of drinking beer per person,
Oh, I didn't know that.
as far as countries.
More
But
than like
there's
the
a very
Irish.
yes, Austria is number 2 in the world for beer consumption per
So
person.
who's number one?
Yeah, but far ahead of everyone else, far ahead of Austria, far ahead of everyone is Czechia, Czech Republic. And this gets us to our next topic you were talking about earlier, a cool little town called Český Krumlov, not far from us here in me here in Linz, far from you in California. It's about 45 minutes away across the Czech border. Um, and is a sweet town we got to visit back in July
Yeah.
when you
Well,
guys
let
were
me
out
interject a couple of things real quick since we're going into Český Krumlov.
here.
One, I am an old guy, so I am used to calling the Czech Republic Czechoslovakia. And on
Very
one of our
clear.
trips, we met somebody and we had a few beers and some shots and some cigars. And so we got to a point where Carson had been saying you can't call it Czechoslovakia. So I broached the subject and I said, "Hey, Josef, are you offended when I call it Czechoslovakia?" And he goes, "I'm not offended, but you shouldn't anymore because that is the communist period of Czechoslovakia, and so we try and separate it. And you should call it
They're
the Czech Republic."
staunch
Anti,
anti-communist in the Czech
and
Republic.
ironically, loved country music.
Hardcore
So
anti.
that's one story. And then also we drove into Český Krumlov, And one thing, not just the rental car issues taking it in, but if you have to get a permit to drive in the
Yeah, you
Czech
have to get a highway
Republic,
permit.
which
Yeah,
was bizarre, and you have to stop at certain stores, or you can do it online.
yeah.
So
To
I'm not
get
sure
your
if they
money.
would stop you or penalize you, but as a warning or an issue for American tourists who are driving in the Czech Republic, supposedly you need this permit. So what, $9 or $8? So
I think it was like
I bought it.
15 for the week. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
So
it's actually so it there's I think in a lot of countries, and Austria has it too. It's called a vignette to drive on the highways in Austria. It's basically a toll, and it's kind of on default on like all the rental cars in Austria and everything. You have to buy it at the gas
okay.
stations. But in Czech Republic, you had to buy it online. Um, so yeah, you'll find that in a lot of European countries.
But
They're
most
like toll
Americans are gonna, if
taxes.
they're visiting the Czech Republic, they're going to Prague. And we did have a
Yeah,
friend that was in Prague and came to see us in Vienna, and we suggested it. He was looking for day trips, and it is an easy day trip from Prague. There is a train that goes there. I think it's what, like 80 miles or something, or 70 miles from Prague. So an easy trip for a day.
yeah, it's definitely a day trip. I'd say an overnight trip is a better way to do it. Because
Yeah,
spending a night
great
there
hotels.
is incredible. It's just we'll get into what the town is like, but if you're staying in Prague, I absolutely highly suggest you take this trip to Český Krumlov. Take the train there. It's but it's totally worth the day trip from Prague.
I wonder if
If
one of the
not
cruise
stopping on the way.
lines that goes through like Linz, because it's so short, into the Czech Republic, if there's a day trip from Linz. No, no,
I don't think so. I
with
think it's a
Viking or somebody
little
like that.
far. Yeah,
Is it okay? I'll have to
out
look
of
at the
the way for
Viking
them.
brochure that we get once a week.
Yeah,
So
so Český Krumlov is in South Bohemia, Czech Republic. Small place, about 12,000 people there, but it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
mm-hmm.
So um, the thing about Český Krumlov is the way the city is set up and the way it is preserved. Český Krumlov is a ancient medieval city. I shouldn't say ancient, medieval city that is extremely well preserved. It wasn't really affected by the world wars that Europe went through, and so the buildings are all very old,
Yeah,
and they've been modernized, but the architecture and the style of them still remains to what they were.
yeah. And the
And
other reason
but the
is it was kind of forgotten. No, the communists did not invest in the city, so there are
yeah,
no or the inner city, the
yeah, they didn't put in any money into it, and so the money that has now been put into it has only been kind of somewhat recently. So they've
yes,
been updating more modernly instead of updating it back in like the 1960s of communist era, which would have made it very, you know, there would have been a lot of Soviet influence. Nowadays, they've been
thank
updating
God it
it
didn't happen.
because they didn't do that. They've been updating it more modern. So that's actually kind of been a blessing for them, I think.
Yeah,
But what's especially unique about the city is the way that the
geography.
setting of it
Yeah,
is, the geography of the city. So it is actually on a river. I can't remember what the river name is, but it's the
starts with a
river.
V.
Yeah, maybe a hard Czech word to pronounce. That's the other thing. Czech language is way over my head, but it the river curves and flows throughout, and it actually
Vitava.
makes the
I'm sorry,
Vitava.
Vitava.
Yeah,
VITAVA. Vitava River.
and it winds around it, but it makes the old town of Český Krumlov, like essentially an island.
Island.
It's
Yeah.
so tight that it winds back, so it has like a horseshoe shape to it, and it makes like the old town this like almost small island. It's a peninsula, but kind of
Yeah,
cuts it
the
off in
land
the
bridge to it is literally a bridge. I mean, it's such a
yeah.
tight. You can spit from one side to the other almost.
And it makes it look like it's just surrounded by water, and it's super cool. And so you have this old medieval town, and then you look outside of the city, and the Český Krumlov castle overlooks the city on the hillside right across the river from it.
And I believe it's one of the largest in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Český Krumlov Castle is a large castle overlooking the city. So you look up at the castle, down back into the city from the
Hmm.
castle.
It's
So
gorgeous,
you
and
get
it's lit
this.
up at night.
Yeah, so it's just this super cool little city.
But
There's great hotels, in the old area, cobblestone pass, and the especially nice thing about this for tourists is this old town is all pedestrian.
yeah,
There's
it's
only
easily
local
walk.
cars, like moving stuff in and out or handicap. But it's all pedestrian. It's a very small area. You go down different alleyways. There's restaurants and shops.
There's even some nightlife. There's clubs there, which shocked me. I mean, I guess we would call them discotheques, clubs. Um, we really didn't go out, but we saw them.
Yeah.
But I did want to skip back a little bit to give a little history of why we went there. So Carson's been there for about a year. He immediately started to say, "Hey, there's this town, Dad. It's it's got a castle with a moat, but there's no water in the moat. They have bears." And I think neither one of us believed
Yes.
it.
Yes, you heard that right. Bears
Yeah. So
is what I
part
was
of the
telling
reason
him.
we wanted to go was really not to, I mean, the architecture, the history, but we actually wanted to see the bears because we thought,
Yeah,
BS,
and
bullshit.
yeah, they completely didn't believe me. I saw some pictures of it. They were like, I read some like rumors that maybe the Bears aren't there anymore or something. So I was like, there's a still little skepticism to myself as well. But I was like, I wanted to believe that there were bears still in the moat, below the castle, and
Yeah.
they didn't.
So
I think you guys thought I was like saying something like random or some, weird way of saying it's just a moat or
I
something
figured you
like.
saw something on Reddit that was a bunch of bullshit that bears in a moat. Come on. And I think there was a reason for it. I mean, basically, the bears during the history of the castle really did ward off the invaders because nobody was going to go down and get
I think they
crunched up.
were, if I remember right, they were like a gift to uh, the Bohemian King and Queen.
Yeah.
Bohemian being the area that it's in, not the
It's in the
Bahamas.
Bohemian Forest, by the way. Yeah.
But I think they were a gift, and they put them in the moat, and they had like baby cubs, and they've just been there ever since. So,
Yeah. So
and I'll share
Carson
study, and
basically
also
said and verified there are bears.
there
We
are
when we went up to the
bears.
castle to the fortress, we are like, come on, where are the bears going to be? And we're walking across, and I think I looked down first, or maybe you did because I was walking ahead, and I said,
We saw a
"Hey,
crowd, and we didn't know what it was. I think.
yeah." At first, we couldn't see, and there were several bears, and they were up. It wasn't like, going to Disney World and hoping to see the animals, and none were there.
Yeah,
There
and
were
it
actually
was
bears walking around, looking up at us, and doing a
it
little
was raining
scratching
too,
on the
so it's
rocks.
like,
Yeah,
you'd think they'd be hiding under there's like a little a pedestrian bridge they'd go underneath, but
yeah.
no, they were just out and about, scratching on the rocks, hanging out. Like they were very they like to show off.
So yeah, 5 stars to Jesse Kumlof and the castle for actually having
For
real bears.
actually having bears. So
Yeah,
the castle, you walk up through the castle, it's super cool. It's a classic castle, but it's a little bit different style than you may be used to because it's bohemian, in that style. So there's
yeah.
some unique stuff to it. But one of the
But it's
things you
also
go up,
visually when you're in the city, it's built into the cliff. It's not on the
yeah,
island. It's built on the other side of the river. So it's a cliff. So at night, and the archways are very famous. I think that's part of the symbol of the
yeah. So one of
city.
the famous
Yeah,
parts is the bridge. So the bridge that connects the castle between these two
which just looks like a
like
sheer wall with
kind of cliffs.
spectacular windows in it, arches.
Yeah, it's a if I remember right, it's a 3 or 4 story bridge that you can walk on the bottom like open air part, and then there's actually
Yeah,
buildings above the
maybe we'll
bridge.
post a picture of it for our viewers.
Yeah, on the YouTube video. So check that out. But you walk across and you get up to the gardens at the top. And there was something else that was very cool that I didn't think was in town, but it was just outside the castle grounds,
Oh, I think I know where you're going.
outside the gardens. And this was something I think you were
The
really
theater.
enjoyed. Yeah, the theater.
Oh
So
yeah.
can you
Uh,
explain what I'm talking about
well,
here?
I don't. Did we know about it ahead of time?
I did, yes, I did.
Oh, okay. And as you walk, this is outside the castle. You keep going up the hill, the cliffs to a garden area, spectacular gardens. Again, it's raining. And so we're walking around the gardens, and I see a line of probably, I don't know, 10 people. Uh, and we look, and I start asking, and you can hear the noise of motors, and it's a famous theater. The stage, it rotates. So it's a theater in the round, but the crowd is moving around
Yeah,
on.
so if you think of a typical theater, they need to change the sets between different scenes, right? And do that by closing the curtains, moving,
Yeah,
shuffling all the pieces around, changing up the set. And this the like auditoria theater takes it differently. So it's open air, it's outdoors. Instead of curtains or hiding stuff to change the scenes, they flip that kind of concept on its head and put the audience
on a
seating like
carousel
that
base.
on
Yeah,
a carousel on a spinning platform, and so the audience literally spins out of view of the stage, and so it creates this crazy effect of like the audience is moving below the like seats. There's like a little, I think they call it the rotating cafe, but at the time I think I knew it was in a rain, so I didn't look into tickets or anything, and I actually thought it was further outside the city.
yeah, I did too.
But it's the Revolving Theater in Český Krumlov. They were showing Sherlock Holmes and the Hounds of Baskerville at the
Right.
time. But they regularly show plays. Um, so a really cool kind of unique thing in this already super cool unique town just
Yeah,
right next to the castle. So if you're ever visiting and there's a cool play going on, the revolving theater in Chesty Krumlov is a very cool little thing
yeah,
um,
and I think
experience.
a couple of things. If you're going in the summer, Carson does a very good job. He's a great travel planner. Make sure your hotel has air conditioning.
it,
We
it
got a
depends on the weather and everything. We
Yeah, I
got
mean,
kind of
we actually
weird.
didn't need it because it cooled off because of the rainstorms. But we got a hotel right on the river in the historical inner village, and we had a balcony overlooking. What's unique, if you're an outdoors person, you want to go river rafting, kayaking. Basically, you can do it around the city, and they do have rapids as the kind of. I don't know if they're man-made and natural because there's different, and all the restaurants are along there too to watch. So there were a lot of tourists uh, getting into rafts and kayaks to go down the rapids. And I think there were two sections, if I remember correctly. So and
Yeah.
restaurants all along the river. Some
Yes.
gorgeous little cottage and village homes there too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll shout out the restaurant or the hotel we stayed at. It's a Darney Hotel Castle Bridge because
Hmm.
as the room I booked you guys, it has an outdoor patio looking up at the famous Castle Bridge
And the
on the
arches,
hillside and
yeah,
the castle,
yeah.
the
So at
arches.
night it's lit up. It is spectacular.
Yeah, so it was a fantastic hotel. It was just remodeled, and
Great breakfast, by the way. I
I
thought,
don't remember that. Was it? I don't remember
yeah,
having breakfast there.
they had plenty of. I mean, not just cold cuts and cheese and that, but they had eggs, and it was actually very
Hmm.
good.
I
You
don't
got up
remember
late
that at
that
all.
morning, yeah. So
But
it
yeah,
was very
that
good.
was a great hotel to stay at. They're also in around the whole area. They sell. I can't remember what they call it uh in there in
The churro
Czech,
cylinder
but
things, yeah.
in German it's Baumkuchen. It's a tree cake and a log cake. It's like a kind of a churro with open internals, and like you can put stuff. I prefer just basic with cinnamon, but it's this cool like they look it up. Baumkuchen,
Yeah.
Baucuchen, or Kuchen. Um, awesome like little dirt to grab, but they had a ton of them in the Czech Republic. I can't remember what they called them there, um, but you'll find those all around the city. Another great place we tried. So when we were at the
Oh,
the
I was wondering. Yeah, I was going to bring it up.
the castle. We were leaving, and I think this was like rated as the best cocktail bar
Did
in.
we know that at the time, or did we just walk in?
I
Because
had
I
looked it
remember
up,
coming out the
but
gates.
yeah, so
I
I
think
had
we
looked
just
it up
walked in.
before, and then we just walked in, and I was like, "Oh, this is a place I read about." It's called the Apoteca,
Apotheca,
um,
the pharmacy.
cocktail bar. Yeah, and it's in I guess an old pharmacy, but it's just like beautiful bar with this
Gorgeous bar.
yeah, just super fancy like cocktails and stuff. And
Great
right
staff.
outside the entrance to to the castle.
Yeah.
So if you're there and looking for a drink, the Apoteca cocktail bar right outside the castle is a
Yeah, you could
great
spend hours
little
there just, and like I said,
yeah.
the staff was wonderful, very helpful, and they made great drinks.
Yeah, and the other place we stopped at, so I was looking for a good place to eat dinner, and it's funny, it turned out it was a like Italian restaurant. But it's and it's not, I don't think it's used in like the, it's a Czech word, but it's just called Papa's
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
And it was a great little restaurant right on the river. So right on the little river, looking back into the old city. So on the castle side, back into the village side. So also highly recommend the Papa's restaurant
Yeah,
if
we
you're
ate a
looking for a
couple
place to eat.
places in the center square area, the plots that were very
Yeah,
good
yeah, in
as
the old
well.
the square. There's a ton of like taverns.
Yeah,
Like I was mentioning earlier, Czech Republic famous for their beer and beer drinking.
Pilsner.
It's the home of the original Budweiser,
Yeah,
where the American Budweiser stole everything from. But it's the original Budweiser, is from the Czech Republic, and so there's tons of taverns to go drinking at, and in the classic like medieval, you know, wooden picnic table kind of style and everything. So,
mm.
um, but yeah, it's an awesome little town to visit. Um, I super enjoyed it. I was glad to have gone and visit.
Yeah, and I even think there's been some movies shot there just because of how you know
Probably.
it looks. And my first impression was this is somewhere maybe Walt Disney had gone. Um, it it's so perfect in its historical architecture that you would think it's fake. That
Yeah, you think it's like
Disney
you
folks
think it's
created
like,
this out of concrete.
yeah, you think it's like not this real town, like it's so like it feels like out of a fairy tale or something, or an old movie. Like it truly does, with the way the castle's on the hill and the
Yeah,
tower of the castle
and the
and the
rivers.
bridge and the
It's like they
river, how it
designed the
cuts it.
river to get tourists into
Yeah,
town
yeah,
and
the
keep them
river,
there.
like it's it's unbelievable how like it's set up, and like when you look at it on the map and you see that the river
It loops
winds through the
around.
town, like
Yeah,
you'll see what I mean. Like it's just, yeah, it just looks crazy,
I know
and
they
you're
had
like,
some floods in the early 2000s. I'm surprised it just didn't break the land bridge and punch right through, depending on how bad the floods were. And the stores, obviously, there's lots of tourist stores there. We went to one that had some, God, it was like a little museum. Do you remember that one on the corner down from the
yeah, like
hotel?
like they had old manufacturing motorcycles and
Yeah.
candy
And I
and
spoke to the
all
guy, and it
sorts of
turns
stuff.
out, I said, what's the Czech motorcycle? The thing?
Skoda. Oh, it's motorcycle. I don't know.
Uh,
Car manufacturers. Skoda.
Skoda. Yeah, we talked about Skoda with the old guy, and he had a Harley. And I kind of laughed. I go, "You have a Harley?" He goes, "Yeah." And he said because of the exchange, it was, but he had nothing but complaints about the taxes there. So I've never heard about the Czech Republic having high taxes, but he said you Americans have it pretty good. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." He loved his
So
Harley. So yeah,
yeah,
two
so
thumbs up.
yeah, we'll wrap it up here. But coming from us, from the Whitwer family, we will highly recommend um the town of Český Krumlov, its preservation and everything, and
Yeah,
we highly recommend that you visit it, whether you're going day tripping from Prague it's a stop on the way to somewhere else. If you're
And as
coming
any
from
European city, it has a great churches. The cathedral, I think it's the Church of Corpus Christi, spectacular church. But if you're going through and you only have a couple hours and you want to see the whole town, just get up to the castle and look down. It's a
yeah.
spectacular view. So
So with
great.
that, we'll
Till
end
next
it
time,
for
folks.
this episode 10. Hit double digits here, so that's awesome. And we thank you guys for joining us on our podcast, and we will
Tell
see
others.
y'all next time. Yeah, check us out on YouTube at Wits End, and on TikTok at Wits End with an underscore at the end. And we'll catch you later. So
Talk soon.
goodbye.
Cheers.